Good morning, everybody. Please leave comments in the comments section. Hit like and subscribe. This is Tom and the Servant for another Raw Talk. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Steve. Is this like your first big debate?
No, like I've debated people in chats, right? Like PhDs that I was like prepared for, but never like four professors in a row, like where they get the rest and I don't. Like when you're in a live show, it's nervous already, right? And
Right.
then like you get all these people one after another, and all these guys have pretty good science education. I had Hillbilly
No,
Blue Balls, Bob the Science Guy, everyone you can name that was like has a little bit of fame in the community, you
yeah.
know?
Now check this out. So I watched the first 10, 15 minutes intentively. Well, then I got busy. My wife had to cut my hair and all this was going on. So I really didn't catch after that. So I'm going to rewatch that. Up until that point, there is only one thing that I wish you would have said. And I want you to think about this. The next time they bring up that stupid gravity, ask
Yeah,
because you did a but ask him if helium is anti-gravity. Then
right. I
that's
see
all
it.
I was. Because I mean, even though you say that, all the other answers you gave them were correct. But they're always making us answer. You got to flip that table because you can. I couldn't believe how well you were just coming up and answering this stuff and then you just laugh at them when they change the subject kind of and like there you go with that and then he went straight to Newtonian. He already pushed Einstein away.
Right. You saw how quick he put Einstein in the trash, right?
Right, right. Man, I mean, I was thinking when he's answering these questions, I would have just been stumped. You had an answer for everything, Steve. If anyone says you didn't do good, that's because they're a Luciferian baltard.
And you know what? That means a lot coming from you, man, because like really I was out there trying to promote the show, and thinking, maybe we can get a few more subscribers that way, especially if people could see like that, like, I'm a nice, like I'm trying to be a nice guy, right? And that's like the main part of my personality that if anything, like I'm not proud of anything. I'm just a speck, right? But the thing I'm the most proud about is how much I've changed in my life, and that's all due to God, and for them to see me like getting beat up by these baltards, right? Or these kind of high ranking baltards, right? That I can still be keep my personality and keep my cool. Like I wanted to project that, and
You
we
did.
did that. Well, that makes me feel good. That makes me feel very good to hear that from you.
Because I'd have been going off. I told my wife, I was telling her how good you were doing, and then I'm like, I wish that I could have the answers that Steve does, but then yet with my attitude. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because I mean, they
What did?
couldn't.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they couldn't really stump you
Well,
at all. I mean,
did
they just have to keep spinning their stupid vain doctrine. I mean, like you say in that one point where everything's refraction. You show them the black swan. Oh, that's just refraction. Well, show us the curve. What's refraction? I mean, they just use words and they have no proof. They didn't give one proof, Steve.
Well, I'm wondering how that looks to the audience, right? Because like, okay, 'cause here's the thing, right? Yeah, they get you to talk about gravity and the curve and some images, right? But they don't ever want to talk about gas pressure without a container. How are we breathing? You
Hmm.
know, uh, they don't ever want to talk about the motion you don't feel. They don't ever want to talk about how the stars are all the same every year, right? Like all the things that destroy them already, like the model is destroyed already, right? And
Right.
then they want to argue about gravity, or like, what do you think about seismology? It's like, no, long time ago that ball was done.
Well, I
Right?
mean, here's the thing. Like when he said, you know, well, what happens if I can't remember the object and I drop it? Well, it falls because it's heavier than air. What happens
That's
if I take a balloon and fill it with helium and it goes up? That's the response we have to be able to be sharp on.
That's right. That's
You
right. Well,
know?
you want to know what I was upset that I didn't push even further is when I said, well, we have this ever expanding universe, right? It's ever expanding. It's infinite and it's growing every day, all the time, right? Well, what is the Earth doing to counteract that loss of pressure? Because the volume is getting bigger in space, right?
If
And
you
so
believe that,
well, yeah, right, right, right. Well, so if you believe that that the universe is or whatever is expanding, right? Well, we have air on our planet, right? And it's next to a vacuum. I mean,
yep.
a tremendously, horrifically strong vacuum, right? That would probably tear our air off violently, right? And and uh, and if it's ever expanding, right, then what is the Earth doing to counteract that loss of pressure? And you know what Sean G said to me? Oh yeah, there is mechanisms for that, but let's talk about gravity. And I
Yeah.
didn't drill on it. I didn't drill him on it. But did you see Bob? Right, he tried to show me that picture of Mount San Juan Jacinto or whatever,
Yeah, and that's
and
where I kind of couldn't pay attention anymore after that because that I'm not familiar with.
oh my God, this is what he tried to do, right? So this was his little trick that he was gonna do. He was gonna show me the Mount San Juan Jacinto that Jay Tollins showed with the infrared, where it
Okay?
was like I don't know 200 miles away or something like that. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm a little off on that, but it was way too
Right.
far for me to be able to see. And he goes, "Do you see that whole mountain right there? You see the peaks, you see everything, right? You see the whole mountain, right?" And I said, "No, that's an image of the mountain, right? And, you know what I mean?" And
Right.
I said, "Can you zoom in on it so that I could see if it's compressed?" You know? And he goes, "No, no, no, no. The whole mountain's right there. The whole mountain's right there." I'm like, "No, Bob. Just, I mean, for 2 seconds, just zoom in there so I can see if the image is compressed because there's a difference between a mountain and a picture of a mountain, right?
Right.
there, there's a difference between an apple and a picture of an apple, you know." And so so I'm like, well, just zoom in on it. And he's like, no, 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 I can't, or he didn't want to or something, you know. And I
Okay.
knew what he was going to do. He was going to show that mountain and say, there's the whole mountain. This is how many feet there should be. And then he was going to do an overlay of the mountain, like a good full image that wasn't compressed, and lay it on top and say, this is
Ah,
how you're supposed to see. Yeah, I knew he was going to do that. I was like a step ahead of him, right? And I'm like, oh, I see what Bob's trying to do. But why do they have to do the tricks, man? Why do
it-
they have to try to, you
to
know?
believe the lie. You
It's
can't, you know what I'm saying?
it's
I
insane.
mean, to believe the lie, it's the only way you can,
Well, then they
right?
got right,
It,
right. They
and
needed
so
to
let me ask you this. So if, because I was going to ask you about that picture. So they're
yeah.
saying they can see curvature of that picture.
No, they're trying to say that all of the mountain is not there, right? So it's really just an image.
Okay, okay. And here's my point. And I did catch the, and I didn't quite understand the picture, but I knew the concept. I knew what he was trying to get at. That something was hidden or over the curb. The only thing that come to my mind then is to ask him why isn't the mountain leaning backwards?
Right. I should
It
have
should have been
asked.
pitched somewhat backwards. And if you can't at 200 miles, it's you're already hiding a mountain. How come when you're at 100,000 feet, then you can't see the curvature?
Man, there's always these things I could have said, right?
But
That's
here's the thing, though.
hard,
I couldn't
man.
have even got to where you got. You
Uh,
know what I mean? With some of the, I was thinking, man, if I was there with you or someone else was there with you, because
that's what I'm saying. To
that would
write
have
the
been phenomenal. Because they couldn't, between the two of us, you could break out to scientific because you understood the picture and I didn't. You knew
yeah.
about it and I didn't. But I could have said, why isn't that mountain leaning back, tilted back at some degree of angle then?
Well, here's the thing. I can it's like I can almost see the tricks before they try to do them. Like I don't know why. I just have this like maybe it's a sixth sense. I don't know, man. Like I don't know what's going on with my brain this last couple of years, but it's almost like I'm a step ahead of them if they're trying to be not genuine. If they're trying to be dishonest, I can see that they're not genuine. But like, if the scientific stuff, the real deep technical stuff, yeah, I'm not a genius, you know. I mean, I might be maybe a little sharper than the average cat, you know, but I'm not like, the mind of God or whatever, the TMOG, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not a genius like that where like I could blow people away. You know what I
But
mean?
see,
Like,
here's how I am though, Steve.
uh,
I I mean I can't most of the stuff when that stuff comes to me, I know the answers, but they don't come to me until a minute or two later, like if the subject's kind of already passed. And then I'll say, oh, okay, now you like when something comes up to you, you're right on instantaneously. Mine's the
man,
delayed reaction. That's why I would suck in a debate.
that's so nice of you to say that, man. I'm now I feel a lot better about it because I was like
Dude,
hoping I presented our channel well. You know.
you did. And here's what I wanted to bring up too. I was reading, and that's the problem sometimes when they have the chat scrolling. For whatever reason, my eyes always focus on chat. Okay, it's like watching a movie in their subtitles. I'll read the subtitles instead of watching the movie. So in the subtitle or in the chats, all these idiots kept spewing. They'd bring up QE, like you're just babbling QE's rhetoric, or
Right.
it's just God. Here's the religious fundy. And you don't see that while you're debating, but I'm thinking if I'm watching this and I could say something or type something to you, I tell them if it isn't God that did it, then who did it? Because now you got to go back to, always go back to nothing exploded and created everything. You got to go back to their religion.
Well, the point I was trying to make, right, before he threw Einstein in the trash, right? That's exactly what he did. He threw
Yep,
Einstein in the trash, right?
yep,
And that's supposed to be his hero, right? What I was trying to do was say that God created a system where the rock falls to the ground, right? Is just as good of a story or good of an explanation, right, as
right.
saying due to the uneven distribution of mass, the curvature of space time made that rock fall. I mean, I would say that mine was a little more credible, seeing as how God came to Earth, died, and flew to heaven on his own authority, right, in front of many, many people. I mean, that's like saying, like, oh yeah, Newton existed. Yeah, I accept that. But why don't you accept, you got to
Right.
say that, okay, God did it and he came to earth to show that he was real, you know?
And it's like
So,
this. How many
yeah,
people actually saw Newton? I mean, how much stuff is written
I
about
don't
Newton?
know.
I mean, there's a
Aristotle,
lot of stuff, but there's way more historical evidence of God, written
right.
historical evidence,
That's my
thousands
point.
of years of evidence.
Well, and not only that, right? They bring up these cats like Aristosthenes, like, way, way 2,000 years ago. The guy doesn't even have a last name, right? And his name is really jumbled up. It says Earth Set Stone. I mean, if you unjumble it,
Okay,
right? So it's almost like mockery, like a mockery thing, right? And it's like, yeah, this guy 2,000 years ago with no last name that I'm supposed to just assume existed, right? He had two sticks and proved the earth. Get out
right.
of here. And
Yeah.
you God, man, but you believe
Hey,
that.
they'll believe that, but they won't believe a laser test that's shooting across water for umpteen tens and tens of miles and show no curvature. How did
Right.
they get out of that black swan picture? Did they
So,
use refraction on that?
okay, so the reason why we stopped talking about the black swan is because we reached an impasse where I couldn't argue any further because he said, "Here's the black swan, right? Here's the horizon, which is way back there, right?" And then he's like, you see where these dots are? He drew like a dotted line across in front of one of the rigs or
Okay.
whatever that is,
Hmm.
platforms. Drew these little dots right in front of there, and he goes, "That's where the horizon is." And I said, you're trying to tell me that's the horizon right there where your dots are?" And he said, "Yeah, right." And I'm like, well, we're obviously at an impasse because that is not, I mean, that's not a horizon. That's dots in front of the platform. How am I supposed to know that's the
And
horizon?
that's a wave that he's doing, putting them dots across.
And you can see the horizon in the back, right? He's telling me that where the dots are is where the horizon is, but it's just dots. Like you can't
Right,
just draw some dots on a picture and say there's a second horizon. Get out of here with that, man.
right,
That's stupid.
right.
And I'm like, we're at an impasse. If you believe that that is a horizon where you drew dots, right? And then when we're out of here, that's no good. And then he was trying to say, well, how come I can't see all of that platform? And I tried to explain to him optics, you know. I said, well, that because when you can't resolve an angle, right? Um, your brain doesn't leave a blank spot in your vision. It just takes whatever's in front of it and raises it up, you know.
Plus, she's only 1 foot off the ground. The camera was 1 foot off the ground when it took that picture.
1 foot off the ground. I should have reiterated that that camera was 1 foot off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, and if it was 10 feet, he'd had to draw his dots back more. If he was 50 feet, his dots would have had to go back more.
What are these dots, man? I
That
like.
him
I,
making it up because he knew you had him by the balls.
I mean, could I just draw my own stuff in there and say, "Oh,
Yeah,
like,
I was thinking that, Steve. If you could, I was thinking if because I know he had the picture though. I was thinking if you had it, you could draw the dots way, way back anywhere you wanted to put them, right?
I could put those dots like in the sky, man. You know, oh, see where those dots are in the sky? That's where the water is, really. You know, get out of here with that. You know,
Right.
you want to do drawing a duck and drawing a shark? Can I draw a shark in there? Get out of here. I should have done that and made it funny, you know. But I wanted people to see that I'm just nice, you know, to people, and like I just wanted them to see that like you can't really trigger me, and I'm not there to really try to trigger other people. Although I think they were getting kind of triggered by me, you know.
Yeah, you could tell by the chat. Absolutely. I'll tell you what though, I
Well,
don't care for that Jose, but
yeah, yeah,
I think he did a good job of letting you guys kind of just go at it and stuff and kind of stay out of it. From as far as I saw, like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I thought he handled the the debate pretty decent from the point I saw, and I think he really listened to you.
yeah. I do, and like the Jose's been pretty gracious to me, you know, and he's shouted us out a couple times, you know, and you know I'll say that you know over there he gives you kind of a fair platform, but like I think like what happened like the thing that was hard for me right was after the Sean G thing I was kind of like worn out just because it's live and you know I thought I did pretty good and like I was happy, right? But then it was like, oh, George wants to have a piece of you, Bob wants to have a piece of you, Blue Marble wants to have a piece of you, and he had it set up so good because he's a good host, right? That like, okay, now George, okay, now Blue Marble Science, okay, now Bob, the science guy, and then there was another guy that took a swing at me too, like a pinata, you know.
Hey, did it said something on there about Rakia Life? Was Dave in there?
That's what I want to tell you. I like Rakia Life, man. I
Was
think.
he on your side?
Well, no. So after I was done, right, I dropped off the call, right. I could have stayed on the platform and kind of talked and stuff, but I dropped off, and then Rakia Life joined, and then they tried to hammer him, but he's
Okay,
a country boy, man. He didn't let them he didn't let them come to him with no nonsense, But yeah, I don't know if he debated really with them. He's like, come on now, I'm not gonna let y'all talk to me like that, and the moon is farther than the mountain and all this crap, right? And so he handled himself well.
good.
Um,
Because
he,
the way they make it sound in the title, even Rakia was, had opposing view you did. That's how, when you read the title of the video, that's kind of how I first took it. I'm thinking, there's no way Rakia.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
I
no.
knew he was on our side. I've actually messaged him a few times back and forth in chat. I watch his videos. He's got
Yeah,
some
he's
of
a dude, man. He's a solid dude. He's a
the.
man of God,
Mm-hmm.
and
He
and
is.
like and like it was like I was on there, and like I guess they kind of featured me as like a piece of fresh meat they can come after, like sharks. And then when I dropped off, Raquel Life joined the show back
Nice,
to back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nice.
But
And I
then
tell
like
you
I
what,
was,
Steve, no matter
yeah,
what, no matter what anybody, how they comment or what their beliefs are, you represented God extremely well. You know, you destroyed the ball easily. Of course, we can't
mhm.
really prove flat Earth other than, I mean, he kept asking, "What's your proof? What's your proof?" And you just kept telling them, "Distance, distance, distance," and they just can't see it. But some of them do. So I'll guarantee you, one person took something away from that, and is really at least thinking about it and going to change their mind. I believe that.
Well,
I mean,
I
you
hope.
did that well, Steve.
Because especially when George tried to come at me with that theodolite thing, he shot a theodolite at, both horizons, right? But he wouldn't say the horizon. I said, well, where are you drawing the tangent to, like where are you shooting at theodolite? And he's like, out, out into the distance, we're measuring the curve. I said, well, where are you, like where is it, the top of the water, the top of where you see the water, or is it the horizon? And he wouldn't tell me, right? I'm like, all tricks, man, because you're pointing it at a refracted horizon. If you presuppose we live on a ball, it's a refracted horizon. If you don't believe we live on a ball, then you're shooting at a land that shouldn't be there.
Right,
I
right.
mean, but these guys with their little tricks, I wonder if they like, rub their little hands. I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna get these guys. you know.
And that's all they have is magic tricks. You know, really, don't look at this hand because you got the other hand's doing the trick or what. You know, it's just it's all it is. It's gimmicks.
That's right. It's like if you're watching David Copperfield, you're like, man,
Hmm.
that's how did he make that motorcycle disappear? That he didn't make a motorcycle disappear, but it looks like he did, right?
Right.
And that's what they do, right? And it's up to us to figure out how that trick works. And then when we figure it out and call fake, right? Then like it's like people like good people like my brother who's not a baller, right? But he believes in the ball because he was taught it, right? It's like he'll say, "Oh, why are you calling it fake?" And I'm like, "Because it is fake, dude. It can't be. It's not real. It can't be possible for a motorcycle to disappear. You know what I mean? Like." I'm showing you where that it's fake. There's like only one little gap that you could get into to prove that.
You know where
And
you had them by the balls the best, and then it just ended. I wish it would have got hammered, but it's you against the whole panel, so I get it. Is when you said if it was really a ball, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. You know
it
what I'm
would be
saying? Because if it
anyway.
truly was, everybody would know. It'd be so easy.
If we
Flat
were on a
Earth wouldn't have lasted more than 30 seconds.
if we were on a moving ball, we'd have stuff like like we'd have a drink sitting on our table and it'd be moving. We'd we'd be there'd be curb everywhere. Things would be disappearing everywhere. It's not that big of a ball that they say we live on. Yeah, I can conceptualize like, yeah, maybe we're a very um, small thing on a very big ball, right? But the radius of 3959, you know, it would be evident everywhere that
Yep.
things are dropping down and away from us. And a boat wouldn't disappear from the bottom up. It would disappear like with the butt end coming down, like going over a hill.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. The front would be going down and the back end would be up.
yeah, I mean, it's all crazy. And then we'll see what was good about this weekend, right? Is I got in a little bit of not a fight, but like a little bit of a back and forth with my mom because I want her to see it so bad, so that we can have long discussions about it and stuff. I think that would be beautiful. And so like I wanted her to see it, so I kind of pushed it a little too much, and it always causes a little rift, right? And so I realized, I'm like, well, I guess when you're trying to show somebody love, right? And you keep overdoing it, right? It's like your love can feel like abuse because you're giving
Yeah,
them something they don't want, right?
right.
And so even if it's in a loving way and it's a beautiful thing you're trying to give them, if they don't want it, it feels like like you're abusing them, right? And so I'm like, Mom, I don't want you to feel that way. I'm going to leave you alone. And then I kind of hammered my brother a little bit with it, because I still had some in my tank, right? And I felt really bad. Like I really want them to know that I love them, right? But then what happened, right, was my kids, they both started opening up and listening. Like my youngest one, even that said I could talk about God in front of him, and we were talking about
Nice.
a little bit, and I sent him the card, how to get saved is a little card that says what the steps you have to go through, right? And so that is, to me, that's light years of pardon the pun, that's light years of movement for my youngest son. And then my oldest son was like, he listened to the debate with me and those guys, and then he liked the stuff that Adam made for our show, the green, and then you and me in the boat.
Hmm.
And he said, Dad, I'm proud of you. And then he said, and then he texted me, Dad, I love you. And I was
See?
like, man, this is what it's all about, right? And I'm like, well, if my mom and my brother are mad at me, I'm glad that my kids opened up a little bit. And well, me and my kids are close always. It's just I just don't talk about things that are contentious because I'm afraid that it's going to ruin our relationship. But also, I have the responsibility of a father to tell them the truth, right?
Right.
So, so we're running out of time, right? And so, like I'm just glad they made progress, right? And that I think they're both going to be all right. And when I prayed about it, I think that they're going to be all right for sure. And
Yeah.
then and after that, right, my mom and my brother opened up a little bit enough to watch the little debates, and maybe they're not on my side or whatever, but it's like trust me, this is not a belief. This isn't something I choose to believe in, right? If I could choose to believe in anything, I just believe in whatever everyone else believes in to prevent any kind of fight. Like this isn't a belief. This is a truth that I had to accept. you know?
Well,
And
think about this, Steve. The ball's been around for thousands of years, okay? They've had their little doctors and PhDs and fake scientists tell you everything it is. Flat Earth has only been around for a few years, and it keeps getting more and more and more evidence on our side. Their evidence all goes back to a Big Bang in Newton. You know what I'm saying? They haven't given any more new information other than what people that they've never met or even know, don't even know it truly existed, gave them, and they were taught in school. You know what I'm
right,
saying? The evidence
exactly.
keeps mounting and mounting and mounting because people are getting the resources to do these tests.
That's
If these guys actually looked at the first tests that were done back in the day, like the Bedford level experience, the Michelson Morley experiment, all those things prove just the opposite of what they believe. But they cast those people aside and then go look at someone who wrote a theory. And again, gravity is just a theory,
yeah. And,
you
and
know?
it's unnecessary. We don't need it unless we live on a ball.
Exactly.
Because every
Exactly. I mean,
town.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's like everything is up and down is established, right? Like only if you're on a ball does down have to be towards the center, because you'd have people underneath the ball or on the side of the ball. But if you live on a flat plane, you don't need anything that attracts you to the ground because you're on the ground.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, they can't say that gravity holds ocean water in underneath on the bottom side of the earth because it's
Right.
not a force. So if it's not a force, what's holding it in? How is
Exactly.
it? And if it is a great force, how could you even move?
Right. You would feel like a magnet, right? Like your feet you'd have to be pulling up fighting gravity, because you have to have an equal force against gravity, right, in order to walk. And
I
see,
mean,
they're gonna say, oh, good servant, you're stupid because it wouldn't be like a magnet, but it would be. Like it wouldn't just be you just pick your foot up. I mean, you'd have to fight a force, right?
and it'd be so strong you couldn't. You'd get crushed. It would actually. crush you. It pulled you down so hard.
Well,
It'd be
and not
like
only
being tied, cemented in a cement block, and then having a freaking jumbo jet with a rope attached to it at 1,000 miles an hour take off with you attached to that rope, and you trying to hold yourself down on the ground. I mean, it would just, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't lift off of it.
well,
You
not
could.
only that, not only that, but they would have to explain, right? Because they're saying gravity holds you because there's the spin of the Earth would fling you off into space and all this stuff, right? There's other forces that gravity is fighting to hold you on the ball. Well, how would gravity know to hold you less at the North Pole where you're just going around very slowly, right? And then at the equator, very, very hard, right? It would have to hold you at different strengths on the ball.
Well, sure, because it's magical. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
a plane. What keeps, for a plane to fly level, it actually has to keep its nose up,
See,
right?
I didn't pull these things up. I wish my brother could hear this show right now because there's so many things that they won't talk about, those guys, those PhDs and professors that I had to face yesterday, right? Those guys will never bring up the stuff that crushes them, like how does a plane fly without accounting for the curvature of the earth, because their altitude would raise, because if they're not bending around the ball, they would fly off into space.
But
If,
yeah,
you
their
know,
nose would have to be pointing downwards all the time, or at least making those downward adjustments steady at the nose, but they never do. The nose of that plane is always up.
yeah, and not only that, but every single pilot that I have ever seen on a video or talked to in person has said they never account for the curvature. This isn't like something that's like only a few people will talk about. Like every single pilot that you run into will tell you that, unless they're like, one of these ballers that are attached to the ball, then they'll lie about it.
Right,
Oh, we're perpendicular to the gravity, you know,
right,
because it's only 8 inches per mile. But it adds up big. See, the thing with the curvature, right, is the number increases, I mean, astronomically, because it's not only going away from you, it's also going down. So you have to square the distance when you're talking about curvature. So yeah, at 1 mile, yeah, that's only 8 inches, right? But when you get out to what, like 3 miles, it's like 6 feet, right? So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as you go out, you
well,
know?
dude, think about this. Just think if you're flying in the opposite direction of the direction, the opposite direction of the where the Earth is actually going the opposite direction, flying through space at 500 million miles an hour or whatever it is. How would you ever, once you took off, you'd never get back? I mean, it's flying at thousands and thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles in the opposite direction you are.
It's
How
so
are
true.
you flying in a little plane keeping up to it?
Well,
I
this
mean,
is
you're
why.
going the opposite direction. You know what I'm saying? Let's just say it's flying north. Okay, it's outer space. It's flying north at 500,000 miles an hour. You're going south. How'd you go turn around, catch back up to that cocksucker?
oh, Tom.
You know what I'm saying? Think about it.
Right, right.
You
None of
could
us
never.
I do it too, you know. Yeah, it should be impossible, man. It's like the way they want you to believe, right? They say like, okay, well the atmosphere is attached to the earth, right? So when you're saying a helicopter is in the air, right? It's holding you to the ball and somehow speeding you up, because when you go up, the circle gets bigger, right? So not only is it holding you to the ball and speeding you up, right? But that's only one direction. It's also going 67,000 miles an hour that way, and
Yep.
500,000 miles an hour that way, and 2 million miles an hour or whatever away from the Big Bang. And so you're saying not only is it holding you going in a circle, which is what they want to tell you, the atmosphere is attached. It's even though it's there's no intermolecular bonds, right? And no molecule is attached to any other molecule, right? And so, like, first of all, you'd have to explain the energy the free energy that is holding all the molecules together and the one to the ground, right? And then it's spinning the airplane, right? So that's only one way. Then it's going, all these other directions, right? And you're like, if that was true, I would never get in a hot air balloon, man.
And you
Like, are
never
you?
reach your destination going one direction
Well,
because you can never go fast enough.
I'm
Or it
sorry.
will just catch up to you. You just have to hover, but you can't hover because it's attached. So when a helicopter's hovering, it's actually going flying backwards at 1,000 miles an hour.
Oh my God, you're making me horse laugh with this stuff, but it's
But
true,
that's their
man.
belief, though.
And
That's
and
truly what they believe, Steve.
and and I'm the one that gets ridiculed, right? I'm the one in
But
conversation.
dude, I was so impressed. I ain't lying. I was so
Really?
hell yeah.
No, I
You
say that. It just feels like you're talking to someone else when you say that. Like, I can't believe that you're that proud of
man.
me. It makes me feel.
I mean, I even had the wife come and look at this, listen to what he's saying. And I'm like, if I could come up with those answers, I know the answers, but I can't come up with them instantaneously when they're asked, okay? But I'm
Yes.
like, if I could come up with them answers, less like he does, right on the spot, 'cause like he'd ask you something like he come up with gravity or something like that, and you just started chuckling because you knew where he was going. And I was thinking, if I could come up with that as quick as he does right then and there, and then use my attitude, because I'd be like a QE on him, and just try to crush him. And but the way you do it is phenomenal. Patient,
Oh,
calm,
man. Feels
peaceful, you know. And even that first guy, I don't know if it was Sean G or whoever that was, he
Sean was.
was he stays calm. I give him credit for that. But all he
Yeah.
could do, he couldn't answer none. He had to just keep throwing question after question after question, so it never came back on him. That's how he gets out of his belief,
Right.
is
What
never
he does
have to answer anything.
is when you ask him.
I lost you, Steve.
Oh, you lost me, buddy. Are you
Oh, I got
back?
you back. Yep, I got you.
So what were we talking about? You were talking about Sean G, right?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just saying that how he has this ability to like if you corner him, right, and say, well, what about this? He'll say, oh yeah, yeah, we got measurements for that, but let's talk about this over here. He
right,
like drags you to another question, right, where you can't pin him because well, you can pin him, right? But the thing is if you pin him, he'll probably stop talking and the conversation will end. Like how right the hand is like, no, 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 I'm not going to let you get past this. No, 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 no.
right, right. And
And
you have to be a good debater to do that. I'm
yeah,
not a debater. I'll talk my belief, but I can't debate quickness like that. It's
it's
like when I watch Kent Holbein in those debates.
oh yeah, yeah.
He has an answer for everything, and we all know the answers. Like, but I can't come up with them. But 2 minutes later, like, okay, then I can explain it to you. But by then, you're already two subjects behind.
Right, well, I was explaining to my brother, right? I was like, I said, me sharing this stuff with you where I'm debating all these guys, right? And yeah, to you it might not look like I'm winning, but I'm not losing either. I knew I didn't let him get me, but I was like, that's like you debating, science people or whatever, and then about evolution, and then you send me a video of Kent Hovind doing it. It's a way different deal because you're
Right,
sending a professional. And I said, why don't you watch this thing from Taboo Conspiracy or watch this thing or watch Nathan Oakley do it, If
right.
Nathan Oakley was there with me
It
or he
was
was
over.
doing,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean if QE because they were actually coming at QE pretty hard,
Yep.
even though I never mentioned him, right?
Right.
I use QE's arguments because they're brilliant. You have to respect them.
Absolutely.
And so because they're coming at QE, I'm thinking, man, I hope that QE cuts that out and then does a little presentation about
I
how
was
they
thinking the same thing. And here's the thing, and I hope QE doesn't jump on anybody for
got a
about what
mess.
you did because you tried and you did your best. And I tell you what, this wasn't about winning or losing. This was about you speaking the truth, and that's what came across. There
Well,
was no
I want
loser there.
I wanted the goal to be, I wanted to represent our channel, you know, but most of all, I wanted to represent God, and I
Right.
wanted to see that, you know, when I came to Christ, when I came to God, right, I wasn't a perfect person. I was a, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a horrible dude or whatever. I came as I was, you know, and, you know,
Yep.
broken, you know, and you know, I progressed, you know, over the years and stuff, but these last couple of years, right, God really changed me and made me a different person, a nice person, you know. And I wanted people to see my behavior, and I wanted to represent God and my family very well, you know.
And you did.
And,
And you
yeah,
did.
I hope so. And thank you for saying that, man. I mean, I can't believe it, man, because like I was like real nervous about it. Like I know that I got beat up, and there'll probably be like, you know, people murmuring about it, you know, for, you know, like maybe a day or so or something like that, you know, the people that care, you know, and I'll
But
probably get trolled, you know.
but here's the thing. The only people that can really murmur or say anything bad about it are really just your Luciferian atheist God deniers.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
because there was nothing that they could prove otherwise, prove anything different than what you said.
Well,
I mean, other than a belief, right? A fake belief.
I hope that a couple people in the crowd kind of saw, not that I was winning any arguments, but saw how they are and their little tricks, you know, and go, hey, wait, maybe I'm on the wrong side, you know, like maybe I came here to make fun of flat earthers, but man, these guys are kind of dishonest, you know, they're just
Right.
trolls basically.
Right.
And it's like God would never make a sun-centered creation, you know, like obviously the sun and the moon are the same size, they come every day, we live in a predictable environment. This place was made for us, there's nowhere else to go. But like they have us believing that like all these different objects are swinging around each other, and you know they built this math structure that like it's like they reify it. Oh well, if this math works out, that proves it, you know, like math proves everything, you know. And they have us tricked, you know, because if you, because like you'd have to assume, right, that someone actually knows how creation was made and then put math on top of it. Well, the only one that's smart enough to do that is the devil, right? And you'd have to believe that Satan exists, right, to believe that that math was, of course the math was added second, right, because you have the you know where we're living came first, and you build the math structure with the sphere added into the math, right? And then you know you can make it look like you're predicting what's going to happen, when in reality these are things that are scheduled to happen.
Exactly. Exactly. Just like the events going on today. I mean, stuff is happening because the Bible's going to be fulfilled. Revelations will be fulfilled, and there's
Well,
no stopping it. You
well,
can't stop
oh, go
it
ahead,
to
go.
come. You can't stop God's word to come to completion. Everything was prophesied. Everything that was prophesied will be fulfilled. Period.
Yeah,
That's end of story right there. And if you don't like it, too bad. It's going to happen.
it is happening.
Absolutely.
You know, there's we, it's like we are living revelations, like it is happening in real time. These prophecies aren't things that just happen to match the Bible or the Bible predicted them. No, that Bible is the story of our life, you know.
Absolutely.
So like um um uh, MOG, right, he was talking about how he believes that we're like, you know, pretty close to being in living in Revelations chapter 11 right
Yeah.
now, right? And so I liked how um you know he puts things right, because I mean we do have to understand, right? Yeah, you can say that we're not in the tribulation because things don't look like they're that bad, right? Or whatever, they are bad but they don't look that bad. But like in other countries, right, things are horrible, man. Like there are people that are like, "Hey, get off my neck, man." You know what I mean? Like the mosquitoes are killing us and all this stuff, right? There's no food, right? Like we're Americans, we're at the top of this. So if
And here's the thing, though, about that. This is because I've been watching a lot of videos on like the rapture and all this stuff. I mean, the church, I think, isn't mentioned from from chapter 4 until chapter 19 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know how we could be living, because if when I read it myself, I see us living like MOG says, like we're around Revelation chapter 11 or 12, up in there, you know. But if the church isn't mentioned after chapter 4, then we're not even to chapter 4 yet.
Right. Like I think
So
the here's the thing, right? I think like so he may have a different belief on us about the rapture when it is or whatever, or who the elect
okay,
is, or who
okay,
so like he does have some interesting insight in on that, and that it is a contentious thing, right? So like where I am with the rapture is I really think it is going to happen, right? Like I'm pretty sure, right, that
yes, absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that the next thing to happen is that our departure. I think that's the next thing to happen.
I do
But
too. I do too.
because we won't be here to see the mark, we won't be here to see Armageddon. But I mean, I do have to admit that there is at least an argument, right, that of not having a rapture, and that not that there's not a rapture, because there is gonna be a rapture. It's written, right? What I'm saying is like it could be mid tribulation rapture, instead of pre trib,
Absolutely. No, I'm back and forth on those two. I'm not 100% sure one way or the other. I do know there is a rapture. I think
Yeah,
if you understand scripture, there's
yeah.
more evidence that it is a pre-trib. But even, I mean, just because you accept that belief and that doctrine on that doesn't make it right. And I know enough to know that.
Right, right. I mean, then I'm like you. I'm like 80% that we're out of here soon, and then
Yes.
I'm like 20% that maybe we're in the tribulation, and we're going to be out of here soon anyway. Because if you now here's the thing, when you brought okay, so two things you brought up, right? That like blow my mind away, right? Is you brought up mammon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that has been I won't go into it that much, but that has been a factor, right? There's people arguing over mammon right now, and then also the thing you brought up was Revelation 6:6, right? And
Yep.
of course I'm like trying to find out the symbolism for the oil and the wine, and basically it's anointed and then saved by grace, right? The blood of Christ, right? Like obviously those things are symbolism, right? But if you take these things, right, and you like are willing to be very open and liberal with the interpretation, right? Right now, there is like food shortages and stuff in other countries, and right here it's kind of getting rough, right? But gas, oil is cheap, and the liquor stores are open, even though we're living in a police state right now.
Right, right.
It's weird. I mean, you'd have to really be liberal and say the oil means petrol oil, and the wine means that the liquor stores are open, and wine is still cheap at this point.
But
Because
that's the thing that's so, you know, mind-boggling about that end of that verse is because I haven't heard. I mean, and I've looked hard on someone that could really explain or preach that, but they always say they're just talking about the food or the rich people or this and that. I don't believe that. I mean, I had another person is one who told me that that the oil represented the Old Testament Jews and the wine represents the New Testament Christians.
right, right.
You know, and it fits.
Because it could be like because prior to being saved by grace, if because some people don't do dispensationalism and they think everybody was saved by grace by Jesus Christ. Now you can have that opinion, right? That's great, because Jesus always did exist, right? And I guess you could say when he did die, right, for everybody's sins, those anointed ones were saved by his grace, right? I'm good with that, right? But here's the thing, right? The for the old Jews to get saved before Jesus' sacrifice, it was an anointing, right? It was an
Yes,
anointing, and some of them were raptured, fully raptured, right?
two
But
of them.
like, but yeah, and then like, but like, uh, so you could say, okay, well there's the anointed Jews, the oil, right? and then the blood of Christ, the Christians, and that is um um a good way to look at that. I mean, that's a there's no problems in looking at it that way. But I think it also means kind of like a food shortage, inflation. I think it does represent that too,
Yes.
and so you got that in there. And then if you want to be loose, really loose with the interpretation, it could mean, petrol oil
Well,
and
well,
I
let
say
me
this
read this. Let me read it so people know what we're talking about, okay?
powerful verse. Oh, that's
Yes, it's Revelation 6 6.
yeah.
And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So things are going to be, there is going to be a shortage of food. Things are going to be extremely expensive. And then out of the blue, and see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine. That, some pastors, as he's saying, well, that's the rich people. This is so all the good people and poor people are going to get hurt even worse than the rich people don't. That don't make no sense
Or
to me.
maybe,
It's like it's talking about protecting
or maybe it's
you. You
maybe
know,
maybe it's this, Tom. Right? Maybe it's okay, a measure of wheat, so inflation, right? You got the
yep.
inflation part of it, and then harm not the oil or the wine. It could mean two things, right? It could mean, well, even though there's inflation, harm not these things so that they can have some kind of extra thing too, right? Or it could mean, how yeah, there's inflation, but poor people can still have access to oil and wine,
But
even though it's a
but
delicacy. Or
it's not saying
harm not.
it's not putting a price on it though, like it does on the other. Because I think oil and wine are going to be extremely expensive, where very few could even buy it.
Good.
Gas is already up 10 cents in the past, but gas is going to go up.
I hope it goes down, man. I hope
But
it goes.
it's, but
Well,
that's
I
why I don't think
don't
it
gas,
means that.
you know.
I really believe it's talking about.
Think
Uh,
so too. I believe. It's hard to say belief now. It's like I know some of these things are. It's like now, like it's like my feelings on some of these scriptures, and really all of them. Right? It's not even a belief anymore. It's for me, man. I know
right,
these things, man.
right,
I know
right,
it's gonna happen. There's no. I mean, the, if I can't believe that people don't recognize, man. With like nobody even noticed, man. We're in a police state right now and nobody even noticed it happening. And
right.
and we're in it. And like 80% of the people have no idea what it means when you sign over power to FEMA and sign over power to the military. Like they have no ideas the implications of that. We're in a police state and they let it happen. I
Did
mean,
something new happen that I missed over the weekend?
no, but it's like think about this. Okay, we're in a state of emergency, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Where
Okay.
they can suspend our constitutional rights.
Right.
That's a
And they
big,
have. And they
that's a
have. Yeah.
big deal, man. That's a big deal. Because then you got the mayor of whatever, what is it, Chicago? That beautiful African American lady. She's going, time for play is over. Now that the law is here, y'all better respect the law. And now we're going to enforce it. This is in Illinois, in
Right.
Chicago.
Right.
Now we're gonna arrest you. The time for learning is over. Like she's gonna come out and thump our skulls. And it's like, man, why do you gotta smoke me in the dome? If I'm just out there playing or whatever, or sitting in a park or whatever, you got to come over and smoke me with a mallet. That's
Right. Right.
got
You're like this. This is how stupid it is. You can go to the beach and swim, but you can't lay on the beach and get a suntan.
that's
You can
unbelievable.
take a walk in the park, but you can't sit on the park bench. Yeah, it's a police state. It's like
Yeah,
being in prison, right? You can walk on the sidewalk, but don't walk on the grass. I'll give you a ticket.
I don't know any other generation of Americans that would ever allow this to happen.
No,
I
no.
mean, those
This
guys
is the
were,
final generation, baby.
well, just being in the military, right? For a few years, look, I wasn't no special soldier, man, but I did my best and I did a good job and I have an honorable discharge. And I represented my country well, right? But like I didn't do nothing special. I really didn't. I wasn't deployed anywhere, you know. And so, but I'll say this: being in the military helps you understand things in a different way, where you understand what how you get freedom is not like you don't just win a war in 1776 and say, oh yeah, we get freedom forever. You know, we just inherit that freedom to every generation. You know, that's not how it
Right.
works. You gotta you gotta earn it all the time because freedom can be taken from you 1 inch at a time. You know, and so these guys in World War II, they were fighting in trench warfare, and these guys in Vietnam, they were in the jungle. I mean, all these guys that you know, every time we had to flex as a country, right, and be and unite with the government to be a team against anyone, right? It's like basically all those guys that did all that effort, all that fighting, right? I mean, depending on how what you believe about all that stuff, I mean, who knows, you know? But
Right.
like, but like now it's like, oh yeah, man, because we're afraid we're gonna get sick or you know that you know I'm gonna endanger grandpa, we're just gonna live in a police state.
Yeah, because that stops you from getting sick because the police don't get it, only we do. It's just like your government officials, they don't get it. They don't have to abide by no laws or no rules because,
You,
I guess they're immune to it. It's
know,
just like when they came up with this freaking healthcare plan back in Obama's days. The plan was so good, only the people got it, not the Senate and the Congress. They had their own separate one. They must have gotten a crappy healthcare plan. You know what I mean? It's so
exactly.
good for you, but we're a little bit better than you, so we're gonna go ahead and take this one for ourselves. Thanks for voting it in for us, guys.
Well, and I'll also say this, right? Like this is one thing I really want to stress, right? Is man, I don't I don't believe in what these protests are even though it kind of makes me happy to see some people are trying to argue against it or whatever. But like what that goes against the point. They're prepared to do that, right? Like it's like that's part of their plan, right? So it's like why should we go and protest and beg for our rights back instead of just going back to living your life?
But the thing is, you would need all your people who own these businesses and companies and corporations to let you go back and work.
Yeah,
Most, I
that's
mean, that's the few at the top making the decision for everyone below them. That they can't go. I mean, if you got 10 bosses, okay, you got 200 employees. You need them 10 bosses to go back to work before you can get the 200 employees to come back.
exactly. Yeah, I guess
I
you're right.
mean,
Very good point. Well, this is my question too, right? People don't okay, so 1,500 CEOs, right, in the last year and a half, right, before COVID, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, they stepped down from being CEOs. I'm talking big time
yep,
CEOs like Bill Gates, right? Even Bill Gates stepped down, right?
yep,
And so that happened, right? That's easy information to get. That's not a lie. It's out there. It's not a conspiracy theory. It happened, right? All the
yeah,
CEOs quit, all the celebrities and all the like say baseball and all that, there's no NFL owner or NFL coach out there saying, hey, we need to get back to football, make these billions of dollars,
right.
like this is important. There's not one coach saying it's unfair. There's not one player saying let's get back to work. Maybe you hear something from LeBron once in a while just because he's LeBron, right? You don't have one company saying, with any kind of like campaign against Trump or whatever, saying we need to open up this country and get Americans back to work. All these commercials on TV are like, since the COVID thing, right? Over and over and over again, programming you, right? And no, there's not one dissenting. I mean, I know I say this almost on every show, but there's not one country, one celebrity, one owner, one coach saying we got to get back to work and make billions of dollars. They're just
Right.
saying, that's cool. Let's just do the layoff and lose all this money. Well, that makes you think. That makes you understand. If you can't understand, it's not about money. Like these people don't care about billions of dollars. You
They
don't.
have it already.
They already have it, and they can print as much as they want. It's not
Dude,
even anymore. It's even in the Bible. We're on the total fiat currency, right?
yes.
And it's backed by nothing. They create money, and it's fake.
I had a good buddy stop in last week, and um, we had a good talk about this stuff, and he really is. leans 90% our side, and the other stuff he's just a little confused or don't understand. And the one thing he keeps thinking, though, he keeps saying, like you, about the money. Why did it, if it's all about money, I mean, why? I said, dude, it ain't about the money. They already have it. Because he can't figure out why they want to reduce the population. you know,
Yeah.
I said, they need to have enough people left behind to do their dirty work. Someone's got to take out the trash. Someone's got to clean the toilet. Someone's got to grow the food. You know,
Yeah.
they don't care. They have all the money. I mean, he took all the gold back in World War II. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a few little dust flakes floating around, but really, when you look at quantity, I mean, the gold was gone since World War II.
It's all stacked up in a vault somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Never,
they don't.
never,
Money is nothing. I said, if they need money, they just go next door and go print it.
that's well. Let me do a shout out, of course, to God, right, Jesus Christ. But I want to do a shout out to the Mind of God channel, right? Um, that I please subscribe to that if you haven't subscribed to that already. Man, this kid is so smart. I call him a kid. Maybe we're all the same age. Who knows? But he's very smart. It blows me away. I'm almost intimidated sometimes. He's so bright. And then subscribe to the Right the Hand channel, and of course Adam Meekin, and
Absolutely.
those guys. You know, and Arwen. If you can just subscribe to Arwen, I missed that little show when I'm not around. But anyway, I figure I do that because a lot of those channels do it for us. And so if I
Absolutely.
need,
No, I like every one of them.
but
Adam Meekin, just an awesome guy for anybody in the flat Earth community or just truth community. I mean, the guy's is nice and
I
humble as they come. He gracious, very.
would say read Romans 10:9. That's a good start. And say this prayer with us right now. Dear Heavenly Father, I turn to you today. I repent of all my sins. I believe that your Son, Jesus Christ, died on the cross for my sins and was resurrected to life on the third day. And forevermore he lives. Father, I ask of you to baptize me with the Holy Spirit right now. Change my heart and renew my spirit. I invite you, Jesus, to enter into my heart. Change me, save me, and be the Lord of my life. Right now, in your mighty name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.